So then you end up in New York City. All the way from here, you end up all the way in New York City. How long were you there?
I was there 10 years.
Okay. And the difference of New York City?
Oh boy, it's very, very different because, when we got there in 1985.
Mm-hmm.
Some of you that are listening, you'll say, "Oh man, well, it's way back then." But
so you're
we're a
graduated
young
high
couple.
school.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're there, and if you know a little bit of the history of AIDS, AIDS broke out during that time.
Okay.
And our first challenge was, would we go visit those that God was impacting? And we didn't know if they had AIDS. They had AIDS when we were ministering to them. They end up in the hospital, they're sick, and nurses are telling us, you have to wear a mask and put on a gown, and because everybody was discovering still
how it spread,
how it didn't spread, the dangers of it. We found out it wasn't very dangerous and how it would spread. So we'd go to the hospital and they tell us, put a gown on and put a mask on, and these poor people were not getting the attention they needed because even the nurses during that time were a little scared how that some of them were neglected. So we go in there and pray with them, and we take off our mask because that's the only way that we could show, trust us.
Sure.
We're servants of God. We're coming here and ministering to you.
Yeah.
And we started discovering that the impact, because eventually they come out of the hospital. Come out of the hospital. I'm telling you, Jay, God was moving, because later on when when the church grew, I mean, God began to really do a work. I would do altar calls, and I would say, if AIDS has affected either you or your family, and I would say, I want you to come. I would have as many as 200, 300 people come just for that in the altar call. So that was impacting in the inner city, especially in the area that we were in, what you call the Sunset area.
Okay.
It was very impacting. And then they started finding out, if you have AIDS, the woman has AIDS, and she gives birth, the baby will have AIDS. And so they started then later on cesareans, but we had babies, we had little kids that they were being born with the affliction or with AIDS.
Yeah.
And we'd have to minister to them. To some of them, we were having already funerals. We were backed up in funerals because it was affecting a lot of people back then. And it spread not only through whether it's the intercourse, but through the drug addicts. The drug addicts were getting it, a lot of them. And so we were there right in the middle of everything. But look, Jay, God is faithful. God kept us. He kept our kids, kept the congregation. The church continued to grow.
Amen. So AIDS back then, especially with the lack of education, was almost like a modern day leprosy in some ways, right?
Yes, well, it was like COVID. Everybody's scared. Everybody assuming things, jumping to conclusions. But yet we have to remember, those of you that are listening, you have to remember, if God has you in a situation, God is going to provide for you, and God is going to take care of you. We didn't know back then, though.
Right.
See, we just, every step we took had to be a faith step that God was leading us and directing us. So here we went, and I had my kids. Look, my little girl, she was 3 years old when we got to New York City. My little boy, 4 years old, and then my oldest, 7 years old. So all my kids were raised in New York City in that environment. But it wasn't only scary. It was fun, because you know your neighbors. You know everybody. You got hundreds of neighbors all around you. And they're playing stickball. They're in the fire hydrants on summertime. I mean, all the kids are together. Man, there's just... So our kids don't have bad memories of that. We just consider it ministry. It's ministry. That's what it is.
So it's not like today when all the kids were just inside on an electronic device, not interacting with each other.
No,
yeah,
it's fun,
you think that's something that kids are missing today?
Yes,
isn't it?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised that the mental health is going along with it, where they're just not getting the interaction and the friendships and the relationships.
No, it's actually, and it doesn't matter the environment, because just think of it like this. We would come out our front door, so it was what they call the stoop, the stairway, but then there's hundreds of those all around you for miles and miles and miles.
Okay.
Hundreds of miles. Look, everywhere, every place. And it's like that. The heat in the summertime is like, it gets locked in, because you got all these high rises,
buildings,
all the buildings. But once you come to the main avenue, we were off Fifth Avenue.
Okay.
You got all the shops, and you got all all the fruits, you got all the vegetables, you got people, everybody. Hey, what's going on? Hey, how are you, Pastor? How's it going? I mean, just like that, you have more fellowship there, I would say, than in California. I brought people to California, and they would say, "Hey, it's strange that the neighbors here don't even know each other, huh? A lot of neighbors don't even talk to each other, huh?" And over there, it wasn't like that. It was open. Or you go to the pizzerias, and I mean, you order just straight out. You order. They could tell if you're not from New York. You could tell.
Okay.
Because in New York, here in California, we're polite. We stand in line over. Not over there. Hey, give me a slice. Hey, give me a pizza. Give me a pie. So it's just a lot of a lot of movement, a lot of talk. People interaction, people are there, and it's exciting though. It is exciting.
Definitely different. Here in California, you can have people walking across each other on a sidewalk and literally will not even acknowledge each other.
Yes, they don't know each other.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. So you go to New York, you're there for 10 years. It's a much different experience. God brings you back. We were talking ahead of time that you said something to me, which is a recurring theme on a lot of the episodes we've had here. And that's the different parts of people's lives. God uses it all.
Yes.
He doesn't waste any of it.
That's right.
So how did your time in New York, what do you think, besides it being important right then and all the ministry and the difference that was made right then, how was God preparing you also for what would come when you came back?
I believe God was preparing us first because we're already walking by faith, right? The AIDS epidemic hit us. But then I saw the addicts there. The addicts were another level.
Okay.
The addicts there, because if you know anything about the drugs or the methadone that they give addicts to break them off, or it started in New York City. The first guinea pigs were from Rockefeller Center. We were ministering to them. We encountered them. And you know where we encountered them? We encountered them in the methadone clinics. 5:30 in the morning or 6:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, we'd go minister to them. In wintertime, you're talking about 0 degrees.
Yeah.
You're talking about 20 degrees. You're talking about cold, but there they are lined up because they're getting their methadone.
Okay.
So we start witnessing to them. And I got such a burden, Pastor Jay, that I told the Lord, how do we reach these guys? Because they would take methadone. Now look at the combination. They take methadone, but they're taking placidils. Placidils are 750 milligrams per capsule. Those are horse tranquilizers.
Oh, wow.
And then they're taking volumes. They're taking anywhere from 5 to 10 volumes a day. And then they're shooting coke. The only they can't use heroin no more. So remember, an addict's looking for the high.
Right.
So then they're shooting coke. So you got these addicts that are addicted on addiction on addiction. And so I said, Lord, how do we set them free? How do we go to them? So the Lord gave us a plan. He says, if you'll only minister to them, I'll set them free. Minister to them. So I just took that as, well, then bring him. I started a rehab center in my house. It started. I had 4 floors in my house.
Okay.
One of the floors became my the men's home.
Okay.
And then the other one was my workers. And then it was my family, and then all the kitchen,
Gotcha.
the kitchen, living room, whatever it was, So 4 floors. So we started then teaching them every day. I took them to the methadone clinic every day, and they were. People told me, "Aren't you compromising? Aren't you compromising because you're giving them a drug?" And I said, "No." I said, "They're already on the drug." I said, "As long as I'm feeding them and ministering to them, I'm believing that God is building their faith for them one day to walk off. They're going to walk off the drug."
Okay.
And sure enough, Jay, look, first there was a guy, Jimmy, and then there was what we call Sally, the actor. All of them have nicknames. And there was Blind Paulie. All of them came. There was Hollywood Frankie. All of them that are coming in, we agree with them. We're going to take you to the clinic. You're going to come back, Bible studies, prayer meetings, activities. I mean, like being in church, you're in church, you're in church. You're just going in the mornings, picking up your dose. You're coming back. Jay, God is faithful. The first one, this was Jimmy, first one, he was the addict of the addicts. He says, Pastor, I think I want to leave. I want to leave. I don't know if I can do this. I said, you're going to do it, Jimmy. God is going to set you free. And then in the morning, one morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, I heard somebody praying loud. I didn't recognize who that was. And I run down, and it was Jimmy. And he had his suitcase there. He was on his way out. And he told the Lord, look what he told God. He says, God, if you'll set me free right now, I will serve you for the rest of my life. And God hit him right there.
Wow.
Right there. The Lord set him free. Never went back to the methadone clinic. After that, one after another, after another, after another. And all they did, listen, and the Bible says that if we would receive the word, right? Receive the word, that he would then build our faith. That if we would build our faith then in the Lord, anything's possible. Sure enough, all of them are receiving the word. All of them are praying. All of them are seeking God. And the Lord is setting them free. Look, we had, you know what our rate was for them? Our rate was 100%.
Oh, wow.
In them coming off drugs. Then the women started coming in. Then the girls, first we had the men, then the women started coming in from the Lower East Side. There's a whole different area, Lower East Side. And the Lord started setting them free, started saying, these became our workers, Jay.
Yeah.
The greatest
Changed
workers
people.
you ever
Yeah.
saw. Oh my God, man. You're talking about being loud. You're talking about being courageous. You're talking about they've already experienced everything.
Right.
They're not afraid, but now they have Jesus with them, and God is setting them free. And it always ministers to me when I think about, what happened, because it was a miracle.
Yeah.
And God is always faithful to his word, always.
Now, I think you're bringing all this up, and this is amazing. And I think it's sad that people that may be hearing these stories right now, it's going to almost sound unusual to them, and it really shouldn't.
No.
Isn't it true that I think sometimes in modern Christianity today, we're making a mistake? I get asked questions all the time like, well, what do you do with a drug addict? What do you do with someone who has addiction? What do you do with someone that's struggling with sexual orientation? Whatever it is, right? And I think you would agree with this. My thinking is you give them God and you give them the word. You don't try to change the behavior first. The behavior's not going to change. Right? They need to know Christ, and then the behavior will start to change.
A great truth in the Bible is that you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So a lot of people right away run to therapists or counselors or talk to me instead of being a doer to know the truth, because the truth works. The truth has never failed.
Sure.
So when they start knowing the truth and the truth starts coming into them, then the Lord is the one that's doing the diagnosis, and the Lord is doing the setting free, because he knows you. He knows all about you.
Yeah.
And then you're able to, look, these guys walked off. I'm talking about from 100 milligrams. That'll kill you in the natural realm to walk off. It'll kill you. I didn't say this part, but we started getting calls from doctors and therapists, and they said, we're going to sue you. I was getting a lot of threats. We're going to sue you. We're gonna, tear your work up. We're going to shut you down. Like they were coming at us. But what works? You can't refute or go against what works, and the truth works.
Absolutely.
And for those of you that are listening today, if you'll only apply yourself to the word, same thing, same remedy as back then. Apply yourself to the truth of God. Apply yourself to your prayers and your time in the Word. Apply yourself to be in your place in the church. God will set you free from one thing to another level to another level. And you'll see, and you've seen it, Jay, people walk away from God, and you'll always see, where did they start? They went wrong because they neglected the very thing that set them free.